Welcome. Special Thursday edition of Chicago Live. I'm your host, Jake Hamilton. So much to get to this afternoon. I was going to go through a wide range of things we're going to talk about, but the man, the myth, the legend is here. Brett Bugansky. Brett, you were just down in the newsroom, as I was, and there's something about, especially these days, when there's a Bears press conference, and Kevin Warren's going to speak, and George McCaskey's going to speak, everyone kind of just stops what they're doing and listens, and maybe listens for that Chicago Live chime that just went off. But listen, what was your takeaway? Did you feel like we got new information, or was it doubling down on what we've kind of always heard?
We did get a little bit of new information here. The big new piece of information that we got from Kevin Warren is that the Bears are now considering for this stadium development project that they talked about starting in June, was that they wanted to potentially look at combining Lost Marsh and Wolf Lake terminals together. Mm-hmm. And that was something that we hadn't heard before. We know that they've been doing some soil sampling testing at both sites, but they also made it clear that Lost Marsh is still a viable site, but Wolf Lake Terminals, they said, was also an interesting possibility. Now, the second one, Wolf Lake Terminals, is 83 acres. There's currently several businesses there already, and one of them is the Defense Logistics Agency, which is working closely with Department of Defense, where they do a lot of equipment, logistical information. And I got a statement from them earlier today saying that there is nothing in the works right now that says that they're going to be moving out. They are a tenant. The General Services Administration is the owner, which is they own all the government, the federal lands. I've been communicating with General Services Administration to find out, okay, this is what the Chicago Bears said. This is what Defense Logistics Agency said. So we're waiting on a response from that. So that was the big takeaway from Kevin Warren.
Do you think they were surprised by, you think they were watching the TV like we were, getting all this information for the first time?
I do know for a fact that some people who work in that office in Hammond have been watching us and are a little surprised, going, wait a minute, does this mean that we have to move out? Well, Defense Logistics Agency said it is to our knowledge that our tenancy has not changed. They've been at that site since the 1900s, and they said, their words, not mine, they are a long-term tenant in that spot. Now, we are still waiting for the General Services Administration, which owns that federal land, to find out if anything has changed, if they are working on any kind of deal with the state of Indiana. Waiting to hear back on that. So that was a big takeaway from Kevin Warren about those two sites. Number two, they also said that they're in the due diligence stage of everything. So they still haven't said, yes, we're settling on this place, we're going to break ground, end of story. Number three, George McCaskey, team chairman, also said that financing has been the big concern. Even though the Bears said they were going to kick in $2 billion for their stadium, the costs have gone up dramatically. The number that he gave, $150 million a year, it has gone up the longer that they wait for this thing, and they said they would have to take out a loan. You know, the Chicago Bears are still very much like a mom and pop organization. They're a family-owned team. You know, they're one of the originals, one of the charter franchises of the NFL, and you know, unfortunately for them, they just don't have the money like some of these, you know, like the Waltons have, and like Woody Johnson has, or even a guy like Jerry Jones has. Like, they don't have that kind of money. They would have to take out a significant loan, and George has made it very clear that something like this is something that they're not going to take lightly.
So inevitably there are fans out there who still were holding out hope that the Bears were going to remain the pride and joy of Illinois.
Well, that's no possibility.
I mean, do you still feel like Arlington Heights is up in the air, or even staying within the Chicago city limits is up? Because it sounded like Indiana to me.
Well, some people would view it that way, but George McCaskey was asked the question, is the Arlington Heights site up for sale? He said, no, we haven't thought of it that way. Mm-hmm. So the land's still not up for sale. He also made it very clear they're still talking to Illinois lawmakers on this whole thing. Now, there seems to be some conflict of who needs to take the role when it comes to getting some kind of legislation across. Just minutes ago, we got the transcript from Governor J.B. Pritzker. Of course, you're going to see that sound at 4 and 5 o'clock tonight right here on Fox Chicago. But he was saying, look, we still want to talk to the Bears, and we are having those discussions, but they have to give us more specifics of what they want in this legislation. And now they have, George McCaskey said they want property tax certainty. They want to have some help with the infrastructure Governor Pritzker has said, we will give you help with the infrastructure. That is not a problem. When it comes to the property tax certainty, they said, that's good, but you got to be more specific. You look at Representative Cam Buckner, who also was on the score months ago saying, okay, the perfect analogy of, all right, you want property tax certainty and you want infrastructure. He's like, well, that's like saying, all right, we want a quarterback for our team. You expect Caleb Williams, but you get Cade McNown.
Sure.
So you have to be more specific of what they want to ask. So any kind of football fans out there will understand that analogy. But that's what it is. And they were saying that a lot of the times, kind of going behind the curtain, the lawmakers say anytime somebody wants to get some kind of legislation done, they usually have their team of lobbyists or their representatives say, this is what they want. We'll write a piece of legislation. We'll see if there's enough support, and we'll put it to the floor. The mega projects bill ended up passing the House. It stalled in the Senate. They ended up passing an alternative bill in the Senate. The House ended up not taking it up because time ran out of the legislative session. So we're still up in the air if Illinois lawmakers are going to act, whether that's in the veto session, whether that's going to be, if they ever were to call a summer special session. Doesn't look likely at this point. But lawmakers are in Springfield right now because it is the state fair going on.
You know what? That butter cow. That's what we're all about. I believe George McCaskey was asked during the press conference about, fans' disappointment having to drive across the state line to Indiana. And he made a comment that said, he said, I've made that drive several times. And if it weren't for a sign that said I was crossing into Indiana, I wouldn't know. To me, that sounds like he's trying to say, yeah, I get that you're upset, but I promise it's not as big of a deal. How did you feel about? I thought that comment was very interesting.
He did make a very good point about adjustments because from 1920 until 1971, the Chicago Bears played at Wrigley Field. There used to be two football teams in the city of Chicago. There used to be the Bears, who were the North Side team, and then you had the Cardinals, who were in the South Side team. And it took some adjustment because Wrigley was just getting too small. They ended up leaving. They went to Soldier Field. So that was an adjustment when they went to Soldier Field. And then when they had the renovations at Soldier Field, they played down at the University of Illinois in Champaign for 1 year. That was an adjustment, albeit it was temporary. But then there was the new look of Soldier Field, which some people still criticize, depending on if you like the old Soldier over the new Soldier Field. He said all these things were adjustment. He's trying to make the case that if they eventually go to Hammond, Indiana, it'll be adjustment, and essentially you'll get over it, you'll get used to it.
That's fair. At the end of the day, if you're a Bears fan, you're always going to be a Bears. I mean, and let's be honest. The point that we keep bringing up is, where do the New York football teams play?
Well, it is. They play in New Jersey, and it is interesting that even someone like Woody Johnson, who owns the New York Jets, he has floated the possibility of bringing the New York Jets back into the state of New York, where they would potentially build a stadium in Long Island. So to kind of their point about how teams like to change locations, they're changing locations 20, 30, 40 years. Unfortunately, it's a business for them. They're going to go for the best deal possible. At the same time, these professional football stadiums don't last very long. They're not like college football stadiums where they stay one place and they kind of build around it. Or even you look at like somewhere like Lambeau Field. I know we don't like to talk about the Packers, but you look at what they had, and they're a publicly owned franchise, but they took the original bowl and they built around it, and it's been a year-round attraction where they've taken the old and the new, and they've kind of made it into this fan experience where they have 70 to 80,000 fans every single Sunday.
Well, you bring up fan experience, and Cassie Carlson was just talking about this, and she openly admitted the Bears have one of the worst fan experiences in the NFL. And listen, I love going to a Bears game as much as the next person, but I've been to a fair share of NFL stadiums in my life, and in the grand scheme of, let's just say comfort.
Yes.
I'm not saying I'd rank the Soldier Field in first place. I'd say that there is some room for improvement, because that seems to be the emphasis. They keep doubling down on the fan experience will be better.
And there's only so much they could do, because the Chicago Park District owns Soldier Field. They're sort of landlocked. You got McCormick Place. They've added a significant amount of park space around Soldier Field. People will complain about being stuck in the parking lot, getting out of a Bears game for 3 hours. We talk about the ingress-egress thing. It could take a long time. Even Mayor Johnson, who admitted this on the score, and some were like, I don't know if you should have admitted that, when the Bears ended up beating the Packers in that overtime game, he mentioned leaving the game early because he wanted to beat traffic, which some fans could say, I understand, but at the same time, you think, why did you leave that game early? But also, he's the mayor. Wouldn't you have some kind of
but that also just sounds like a thing you don't say out loud. I also was fascinated with him, with George McCaskey, addressing the so-called benefit of bear weather. I thought his response, and for people that are unfamiliar with the concept, explain what the presumed benefit of bear weather is, and he had a very interesting response to it.
Well, some people think that there's this thing around the league that if somehow you come to Soldier Field, you're going to have to deal with bear weather, and that they can't deal with it. Like the L.A. Rams coming here to Chicago,
which we would lose if we had a domed stadium. The
idea of like, well, the Chicago Bears have this advantage if they play at Soldier Field because no other team somehow plays outdoors. But the thing is, players are going to be ready. They're professional athletes. Right. The thing is, they all have to play in it. They all feel how cold it is, and if the ball is hard as a rock, they're going to feel all those things. The thing is, I think that's one of those things where people think it's just nonsense.
Yeah. Well, and George McCaskey was asked about it, and he said, I've heard a lot about bear weather, and he said the last time we played a game where a West Coast team came to Chicago, and we supposedly had them beat in advance because we had bear weather in the winter, and he said the West Coast team walked away with the W. So maybe the whole concept of bear weather isn't quite as beneficial as maybe Bears fans think it is.
They're all professionals. They all get up for the games, and they're going to go. And once again, they're all playing in the same elements. It's not like one's playing in one element, the other's another. Right. You're all playing it. Yeah. We're all feeling the same thing. The professional athletes are professionals. They're going to get ready for game day. But, bottom line is they're still in the due diligence stage. They're now looking at the potential of combining two of those sites in Hammond, if that were to be the case. George McCaskey talked about financing being a very big concern, talking about inflation, the cost going up $150 million every single year, the longer that they wait for this whole thing. But also, Illinois is still in play, and they have not put Arlington Heights up for sale. 326 acres. They spent $197.2 million on that property, and they closed on it in 2022.
And Kevin Warren, I believe, specifically cited his wife in saying, basically, I'm done giving deadlines. I'm done giving target dates because every time I do, we hit one of those dates, and there's a lot of press about how we've blown past the target date. So, I mean, now I'm going to ask this, having just said he was not giving a target date, but like anytime one of these press conferences happens, I always just think, okay, well, how long until we hear from them again? Because there's chunks of time in between. We get these press conferences,
and there was a chunk of time, especially after the legislative session, because we hadn't heard from them. So to kind of your point of anytime George McCaskey, Kevin Warren speak, yes, because they don't speak very often during this thing. We, especially now with Bear season, we'll hear from Ben Johnson, we'll hear from Cale Williams, we'll hear from Dennis Allen, we'll hear from all the regulars. But we don't hear from them very often on this whole thing. So it is a big deal because you have to wonder, all right, Kevin Warren had said, all right, our focus is on Arlington Heights. Then it was on the stadium at Soldier Field. We're going to build something new. Then it was back to Arlington Heights. Then it was, well, we got to open it up again. Then it was Hammond, Indiana. So it does get confusing. And for the average football fan, they're probably saying, all right, give me an announcement when you're going to have shovels in the ground, you build something, but I just want the Bears to not only do well, I want them to go to playoffs and potentially go to the Super Bowl and win it.
And it's so funny, that's the moment that I, whenever, friends from out of town reach out and ask, hey, what's happening? I always say, listen, I'm not going to tell you anything's happening until we get that live shot, because we'll take it right here on Fox 32, of the shovels touching dirt. That's the moment where I will go, it's done. And until that moment happens, anything can happen.
And for some big football fans out there, even then, you might have to be careful. And here's why. I think our producer Ethan is a Patriots fan because he's originally a Boston guy. There was a time before they got Gillette Stadium, they had a big dog and pony show where they were in Connecticut, where they were going to build a stadium, and they had the shovels on the ground, and they came back in the 11th hour, and they ended up building a stadium in Fox.
What's going to happen is that inevitably the first throw is going to be thrown by the Bears quarterback quarterback, whoever it is at that time, hopefully still Caleb, and in the new stadium, and inevitably there's still going to be a guy going, still wait, anytime now.
And because of the pace of everything, because they made this announcement so many years ago. Meanwhile, the Titans have already built a new stadium. The Bills have already they're getting ready to unveil their new stadium, even though people have been criticizing all the Bills fans out there about the obstructed views in the upper deck there. Some had even said, look, the Bears' lease at Soldier Field expires in 2033. Will they still be playing football at Soldier Field in 2033? Will Caleb still be the quarterback at that time, and they still don't have a new stadium developed? That's another theory.
You know what? Anytime we ever get 5 questions answered, I feel like we're left with 10. Brett Bugansky, my man, we'll see coming up during 4, and then you're anchoring the 5.
I sure am, yes.
All right, my friend, appreciate you. All right, guys, 1:15 on Chicago Live. We're going to break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. 1:18 on Chicago Live. We got a lot coming up over the next couple of hours on the show. A little bit later, we're going to be chatting with our friends at Fox in Detroit to find out what they got going on over across the way. Always love catching up with them. Also, if you are of a certain generation, if you're of a certain age, there's a good chance you spent your childhood or maybe a part of your life going to the mall. And there's a good chance while you were at the mall that you saw a store named Claire's. For a lot of people, it was an instrumental part of their mall-going experience. There's a decent chance you even had your ears pierced maybe for the first time at a Claire's. Well, they are looking for a revamp. They are looking to maybe revitalize what makes Claire's Claire's, and we're going to talk with some folks about the revamping of that iconic mall store that so many people have really great childhood memories about. Also, we're going to be chatting about the Rideshare Drivers Union, which could very much affect the city of Chicago, could affect many of the rideshare drivers around our city, and in turn affect the people who use them. That's going to be a pretty massive development as it goes along. But right now, we're taking a live look outside. A little hazy. It has been a week of weather, severe storms. Feels like every single day. Still thousands upon thousands of people in the area who are without power, who are still feeling the repercussions of that serious weather that's coming through. Will it continue? Will all of those happy people at the Bean be running for cover any moment now? There's only one person that knows. And she just joined me on set. And
ran up here.
You did run up here, and for that, I think the only person more tired of tap dancing than me is you for running up here.
I've just been tap dancing all week, though.
Well, no, I wouldn't call it tap dancing. I would call it providing actual, valuable, potentially even life-saving information. It's been a week for you.
It's been a week. We've had a lot to talk about, but everyone's had a week, right?
Yeah.
It's been just round after round after round of strong to severe storms, and today there's a chance of isolated severe storms in some portions of the area, but not everywhere.
Okay.
So at this point, it looks like for those of you in Kankakee County, Newton County, Jasper County, we have a severe thunderstorm watch that's going to remain in effect until 7 p.m. I do think, however, that the worst of it likely stays just south, just barely south. But again, for those of you in the far southern tier of counties here, we do have that severe thunderstorm watch that is going to remain in effect until 7 p.m. But notice all of the rain that's beginning to move into the area. So we're missing out on the worst of the storms. You can see those are south of Pontiac, but we have rain that's going to be moving through the area. And it could be heavy rain at times this afternoon. We're going to have another round of storms during the overnight. So we actually have a flood watch for all locations that you see here in green. And Jake, we've just had such heavy downpours coming through that it's not just the storms and the wind that we've had, but localized flooding, that's been a concern too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, with all the rain and the storms, how has that affected the soil and its ability to soak up any of this? Because I know we were in a drought warning, or how does?
So we were considered to be abnormally dry for quite some time, but we had that long stretch in July. I think we went 22 or 23 days without any measurable rainfall. And then what happens there, whether you're in a drought or not, the ground gets very hard, and then when you have, these heavy downpours coming through, it just ends up turning into runoff. The ground doesn't really soak it up. Fortunately, I guess one good thing we could say with all of the rain that we've had is that, the ground is, it's no longer really dry.
Sure, yeah.
So it's going to be soaking things up as best as it can, but now we're really getting to the point of having a surplus because we're getting so much at once every single time these showers and thunderstorms come through. So again, we do have that flood watch that's going to be remaining in effect now. So we'll kind of walk you through here on Futurecast. This is taking us to between 3 and 4 p.m. At this point, we still could be experiencing some heavier bouts of rain moving through, maybe even a couple stronger thunderstorms. Again, far southern tier of counties here from LaSalle and then right through Kankakee over into Newton and Jasper. But it is just Kankakee, Newton, and Jasper in that watch. And then going through tonight, we could be back at this again. So we've shifted around schedules all over the place here in the weather department to kind of make sure that we're staffed, all night long into the early morning hours of tomorrow as well, because by midnight, we could be seeing another go around of strong, maybe severe storms.
Yeah, I really want to give you a shout out for that because, I've seen emails where you're arranging, whether it be yourself or someone, on the team, to be here 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because, these storms are coming through. And if a massive storm, potentially tornadoes, are coming through at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, we need to be available to get that information out. And you were really ahead of that. Yeah,
well, right on this past Sunday night, we had 2 EF1 tornadoes that touched down in LaSalle County. And we were on the air at midnight, 1 a.m., on the air with those. So we're in this really erratic weather pattern. Unfortunately, we still have another about day and a half to go until we start to really get through this. But we have a frontal boundary it's just south of the area right now, and it's just been meandering. Like it goes up into the viewing area and then it sinks to the south, and it comes back up. But it's the focus for storms to just kind of ride. It's like a highway of moisture that you can think of. So it travels right along that front, and we're just getting hit every single time.
See, that's what I was going to ask, because I can't remember a stretch in recent memory where it felt like for so many days in a row we were not just getting rain but hit by actual severe. I mean, the pinks and the oranges and the reds, and I mean, it feels like what since Sunday.
Yeah.
This has been almost Thursday, and we're talking about this going potentially into the weekend. Into Saturday.
So the Storm Prediction Center, they always put out a daily outlook on what things look like. They'll rank the storm potential 1 through 5. We are in a level 1 risk today for most of the area, but again, for those of you in the far southern sections, places like LaSalle County, Kankakee County, you're actually included in that slight risk, which is a level 2 of 5. Now going into tomorrow and then also on Saturday, we're in a marginal risk. That's the level 1 again. So it's a low end risk. But when we had the derecho come through on Tuesday, that was a level 3 out of 5. So it goes to show you, like, even if you're in a level 1,
you have to take it seriously.
We still have to take it seriously. Damaging wind gusts still going to be possible, even with some of those storms that could potentially develop later on this afternoon and tonight. Portions of the area are in a 2% tornado risk.
Our friends in Indiana who are still impacted by the effects of those storms, thousands upon thousands without power. Is it looking like they could be in the path for some of this serious stuff?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think today and tonight, the most likely scenario is a lot of the worst stuff is likely going to be near and south of I-80.
Okay.
So that's northwest Indiana. One thing I will say, I've been keeping a very close eye on power outages too. We've seen improvements, but for anybody watching this right now, they're like, okay, it's not good enough. I'm still without power. But in Lake County, we are down to 77% of customers in the county that are without power. 2 days ago, that stood at nearly 96%. Yesterday, it was around 93% in the middle of the day. So we're making progress. Crews are working their hardest to get everybody back up and running, but there's still a lot of folks that are in the dark.
Really quick before we go to wrap, this isn't as important when we're talking about families needing to get the power turned back on. Air and water show. What are we looking like?
So, again, this pattern is very erratic. So unfortunately, the timing of the storms keeps changing. I was just working on the forecast when you guys called me to come up here, and the most recent data is showing that the best chance of storms on Saturday, I think, is during the morning. And remind me, do you know what time that show starts? I believe it's midday afternoon.
That sounds right.
So
it's usually for me, it's just whenever I hear that.
Yeah, you're supposed to know all this information in your head all the time.
You would think that, and yet here we are.
But Saturday morning is when we have the best chance of seeing showers and thunderstorms, and then we should see a drying pattern during the afternoon. So maybe we'll get lucky, but the cloud deck is what we need to lift in order to really see the show at its maximum capacity. If I had to choose a day that I think is better than the other, I would say commit to Sunday before I'd say commit to Saturday.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Emily, we appreciate you. Thank you for running.
You're welcome.
We'll see you in a bit. All right, guys, Chicago Live rolls on just about 1:28. We'll be right back.
and at the dump.
Welcome back to Chicago Live just after 1:30. This is a situation that I've been in before, and there's a good chance at some point maybe you've been in it as well. You're coming up on a Friday or Saturday. Your significant other, maybe a group of friends, you all decide last minute, hey, it'd be great if we could get together, maybe go grab a bite, maybe grab a drink, and we'd really like to check out that spot. And that spot is inevitably going to be one of the toughest spots in the city to get into. And, you know, you make the phone call or you hop online to try to get that reservation, and you basically get laughed out of the city. Well, because restaurant reservations are starting to become a bit of a luxury commodity, Dorsia it's a members-only platform, and it is giving members access to hard-to-get tables at different restaurants. We're going to bring in the founder and CEO of Dorsia, Mark Lautenberg. Mark, this sounds a little bit too good to be true. How does this work exactly?
Basically, what we did is we are connecting the audience that the restaurants always wanted to have into their location, which is what the original maitre d's did back in the day with paper and pen, and were kind of the gatekeepers of those restaurants. And we built a technology-based system to work alongside these maitre d's to get the right people into the restaurants, to create the right spend also for the restaurant economy, because I always came from the restaurant industry, and the servers and everyone never made the proper wages. And we always thought, how do we fix this problem? Because there's really great quality people that want to spend the proper amount of capital inside these businesses, and restaurants should be able to be profitable, and servers should be able to make the right wage. So is the idea that the person who's willing to spend the most money to get the reservation, to get the tables, that they're brought to the front of the line? No, it's not a matter of who's spending the most, because with our membership, the spends are actually actually lower and capped. We think that the person, if you get them into the room, will spend more on their own, system. So you don't have to charge a lot to get the right people in the room. But the wine drinker, the person who wants to have the nice steak or the nice Dover sole, you don't have to make them spend more money up front. But our job is to get a great quality customer, regardless of the spend. There's people that really, it's not around the wealthiest customer at all. It's people who really care about dining. They care about the staff. They want to treat the staff properly. They just want to go to these great restaurants, and they don't want to deal with the bots and all these other systems, or have to pay off concierges or all these other like nefarious ways that came into the industry. So we wanted to kind of level the playing field by creating the right system and get the right people to get in without having to, text a million people begging for a favor to get in. And that's what we've created.
Is it, all but a guarantee? If I sign up for a membership with Dorsia and I, on a Friday or Saturday night, decide in a couple of hours I want to get into one of the hardest restaurants to get in Chicago, is it a guarantee that I'm going to get in?
No, we like to manage expectations. Anything that there is supply constraints in general, but if you have a membership and you meet our criteria, and you are trying to book for one of the top restaurants even a day or two out, normally we have the inventory 30 days out, but if you're trying to go to the hardest to get into a place an hour beforehand, we're not going to sit there and tell you like, absolutely, it's guaranteed you're going to get it. And that's not the right way to approach it. But we have really great supply and a lot of offerings. And if you're like, hey, I want to go to one of these 10 spots, then there's a much easier chance. But if you want to go to that specific place, then, we can, if you're booking a day or 2 or 5 days or 30 days in advance, you have a much better chance than an hour before on a Friday night. We're not there to we do a lot of things really well, but we don't want to make
you're not miracle workers.
We're not. Well, we are in many ways, but at the same time, we don't try and we'd rather under promise and over deliver.
Fair enough. So break down the logistics for me. How does the membership work? What are the costs affiliated with it? And what do people need to know if they wanted to sign up?
Yeah, so the basic subscription is $200 a year to have access and make some, regular bookings, get content. We have, award-winning journalists that produce great quality content to help you discover and learn about what's going on in the local markets. And then there's a $5,000 membership and a $25,000 membership. But what that comes with is credits to book. So the $5,000 membership, you get $4,000 back in credits to go use at all these different restaurants, experiences, events, et cetera. And the $25,000 one, you get $20,000 worth of. So you're just committing to a spend in advance for the year, and you get to use those credits and book and have great experiences.
Does the tier, whether it be the $200 membership, the $5,000, or the $25,000, is that reflective at all of like a hierarchy system? If the $200 a year guy and the $25,000 a year guy are going for the same reservation, is it safe to say that the $25,000 a year guy is going to get it?
You really like the tiering.
I'm fascinated to know who I'm fighting against to get these tables.
Well, think of it like the airline status, right?
Sure.
Where, your upgrades first, that first group gets it, then 24 hours later, the next group in 20. It's more like that type of system than two people are going at the same exact time, because we don't think that's the right way. But yeah, if you qualify for a certain other level of membership, and you might have additional time to make that decision or get certain advantages, for sure. I mean, that's just in every way, in every type of business, no matter what it is. Even in your local highway, you can have an easy pass that you're paying for against traffic. There's Disney has it. There's every airline, everything that you look at, there's some type of way to create different lanes and ways to get more efficiency.
Mark, we're talking a lot about doing this in Chicago, but Chicago is not the only place where this works.
We're in over 25 cities right now, and expanding, and not just in restaurants. We're starting to add a lot more experiences, everything from music festivals to black tie galas. We're adding hotels onto the platform soon, and really what we're trying to do is have people live a better life, and we're big believers in the frictionless economy. So we believe everything should, the tech should disappear, and you should just be able to do everything, have technology know what you want and what you're looking to do, and the tech becomes invisible. And our job is to create the most perfect experience for you and connect you with those right people to enjoy those experiences. So we started with dinner reservations, but you're going to see as we've been expanding, it's a lot more than dinner reservations.
What are some aspects in Chicago that would expand beyond the concept of dinner reservations?
Chicago's a great city. There's so much. There's art and culture. We do everything. We're partners with Art Basel's Affair. We're partners with Serpentine out of London, and we do events all over the globe with them. Chicago has a lot of art and design. They have a lot of music festivals. They have a lot of culinary. Obviously there's travel. There's great businesses that do conventions here and everything. So, there's. What I would say, what would you say Chicago doesn't have is more the answer. I think it's got everything.
Very true. I think this is a really fascinating concept, but does the fact that we need this, does the fact that someone needs sort of a membership to get into those difficult to get into restaurants, is that indicative of the fact that there are a lot of restaurants that it's just becoming too difficult for the average diner to be able to access?
I mean, I think that's like part of what's going on in the world with experiences and everything, having from, agents are going to allow us to live a better life. They're going to allow us to have more time to share with friends, family, and enjoy those experiences. So I think this is just the tip of the iceberg here. What you're going to see is people are, the days of working 9 to 5 in an office are going to be coming to an end. Whether that's, 6 months, 16 months, or 60 months, anyone's guess. I think it's a lot sooner than we all expect, and that's going to afford us the opportunity to travel more, experience more, enjoy life more. And so, as you're already seeing people really dive into the agentic world, we're building the infrastructure layer to help power all that.
Mark, as we've seen like with concert tickets. You know, it's becoming impossible to get a ticket, and then people are going through scalpers and they're running through issues with scalpers trying to get tickets. And I feel like, you know, we're seeing a world where people are buying restaurant reservations, which inherently is yielding to scalpers in that world. I'd imagine that the benefit of something like this is that it avoids the negative issues that come with a want in commerce.
Yeah, I'd say like scalpers have a limited time left where we're ending that really soon. So that our job is to, you know, kind of level that playing field, and the consumer shouldn't have to jump through hoops to do all that stuff. And there shouldn't be secondary economies created off of the backbones of the artists and craftspeople that create these experiences, whether it's a musician or a chef or what have you. And any of that money that comes from that should go back to the actual creator of that experience, in our belief. So I think the days of the scalpers and stuff like that, like we're going to put a net in that coffin for sure.
What in Chicago, do you know what are some of the most asked for restaurants that people use the app to try to get into?
I mean, you have everything from like a Pizza Amici to a Linea is like on one end of those are two different ends of the spectrum. And Chicago has a lot of great restaurants. And I think also the restaurants from Chicago are starting to come into the other markets as well. And, you know, we're seeing some of those restaurant groups from Chicago. And that's what, you know, Dorsia helps as a community. We also help bring those restaurants into different cities, but we know certain Chicago groups are coming now into, you know, New York and Miami and other locations, which they've have originally, but now you're starting to get, you know, this whole restaurant economy and globalization and people traveling is there. So I think it's great because a restaurant can come from Chicago into a Miami, for example, and then the Miami person's going to want to go experience and go into Chicago and learn more about all the other restaurants that are there.
It really is a fascinating concept. Mark Lautenberg, founder and CEO of Dorsia. Thank you for having a conversation with me all
Thanks
about
so
it,
much,
man.
man.
Thanks for breaking
Appreciate
that
it.
down, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks. Cheers.
Take care. All right, guys, 142 on Chicago Live. Much more to come. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Just about 1:45 on Chicago Live. A federal judge in Illinois has awarded sex trafficking survivor Adrienne Moen more than $50 million in damages in a case against her trafficker. The July 27th ruling is being described by her attorneys as a landmark decision that could help other survivors pursue civil claims under federal and Illinois anti-trafficking laws. We're going to bring in Elizabeth Payne, legal director, and Sarah Gadari, the pro bono partner at Chapman and Cutler. Ladies, thank you both for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. Tell me why, the $50 million judgment, this feels like a significant moment for trafficking survivors. Explain that.
Well, it's totally unprecedented, honestly. And there is a federal and a state law that allows someone to sue somebody who profits from sex trafficking, but nobody has ever sued an actual, just regular sex trafficker before. And there's certainly no precedent for a judgment like this. This has never been done before. So we feel like this paves the way for other trafficking survivors to be able to have justice and accountability from the legal system. And it also helps create some precedent about what the harm of sex trafficking actually looks like.
And Sarah, what does this decision change for survivors who might want to pursue their traffickers in court?
So what we tried to do with this case is create a blueprint. Because no case had been brought like this before, it made it really hard for individuals who maybe can't afford counsel or are trying to navigate something really complicated. It made it really difficult. What we wanted to do is create something that would explain to the next people how to do this. So if somebody else wants to bring a similar case like this, they can pull the complaint that we drafted, they can read the judge's decision, they can see what kinds of evidence we supported our complaint with, and hopefully that'll make it easier for people then in the future to say, hey, I can do this. I don't have to hire an attorney to reinvent the wheel. I have to hire an attorney who can figure out how to more or less, in a good way, copy what somebody else has done. And that is what access to justice is all about. It's helping us with more resources give back to those with fewer resources.
It really does feel like a watershed moment in regards to cases like this. I know you mentioned it, sort of it being a blueprint for future cases. Can you give me some more specifics on sort of what was established here that down the road other lawyers might be able to point to?
Sure. So we brought this case under both of those statutes that Elizabeth was just talking about, the Illinois Trafficking Victims Protection Act, and then also the federal version of that. And because no case had ever been brought under the Illinois Act, we were kind of playing in a sandbox, trying to see what of the federal rationale we could apply in a state court case, what analogies we could make to other state laws. And so one of the things that was really great in the Illinois Trafficking Victims Protection Act that was passed, this is like more than 10 years ago at this point, is that it's super broad in terms of what you can cover. The statute says whatever it takes to make the person whole. And so because that's so broad, we asked the judge, does that mean we can get pre-judgment interest? So interest that would accrue before the judgment, and post-judgment interest. So interest that will accrue on that $50 million moving forward. We wanted to understand the scope of non-economic damages, right? So pain and suffering, the loss of an ability to live a normal life, the fact that you can never have the same kind of relationship with a romantic partner, the fact that you can never have friendships where you don't have to talk about this kind of thing. Those things all have value under Illinois law. And so what we asked the judge in this case to do was to detail all those things. And we supported it with a report from an expert who works with human trafficking survivors to talk about all of those things that we don't really think about. Yes, of course, we also had an economics expert that went through and said, okay, well, what's the amount of money that you would have made if you were in the regular workforce that you didn't have an opportunity to do? But our sex trafficking expert really went through every single possible thing that people who've been sex trafficked have to deal with for the rest of their life, right? PTSD doesn't have a cure. So what does that mean for somebody who's a survivor? What does that mean tangibly for how that will affect the rest of their life? And so those are really the things that we wanted to build in here, is for courts and federal judges and state judges and attorneys and people who have survived trafficking. We want to bring all of those things to light and have everybody understand that when someone's trafficked, the scope of what that person has to live with is enormous.
And to that point, it feels like this case was monumental in that, as you said, it really seems to address the long-term harm that is continue to be experienced by the survivors of trafficking. Do you think that in the grand scope of everything that was accomplished within this case, that is near the top in regards to the takeaways, the accomplishments, for lack of a better word, of a case like this?
I think in terms of takeaways, no amount of money is ever going to make the survivor, the client in this case, whole, right? Like this is a number that tries to calculate the incalculable. You know, the sex trafficking, the harm that's created from sex trafficking is something you can never really quantify. But the judge did put a number on it because you have to in a legal case, right? And so getting a number like that is, yes, it's hugely monumental, but we also have the fact that we sued a sex trafficker, right? Nobody's ever done something like this before. And that gives this client, yes, some sense of justice and accountability that she never had before, but it also paves the way for other people. And I think all three of those things are enormous.
I was going to ask, this really does feel kind of like the first domino that's going to start knocking over the other dominoes. Have you heard of any other cases, heard through the grapevine, through other firms, of other cases already potentially starting to be built because of the results of this one?
I haven't heard any because this result just came out, but sure. I'm pretty confident we won't be the last people to try this. I think we'll be the first, but not the last. And, when this client came to us, and my organization, the Chicago Alliance Against Sexual Exploitation, one of our missions is to end sexual harm and sexual exploitation. And so we're always looking for ways to do something creative with the law that might set precedent for other people. And SAR's law firm very graciously and generously provided their time pro bono. And that gave us a chance to do something totally novel. No private attorney is going to take a case like this because they're not going to collect enough, in attorney's fees. But to have a nonprofit pair with a pro bono partner like this is unprecedented and creates the way for other sex trafficking survivors to try to pursue justice in the civil system in this way.
And hopefully we'll encourage other law firms like mine to put folks who've gone through sex trafficking first. My firm is focused on finance. We often represent banks and financial institutions. We don't often have the opportunity to represent individuals, and certainly not in this type of case. This is not our area of expertise. But myself and other litigation partner here, we were willing to dig in and learn the law with the help of folks from CASE who really know a lot about serving this population. And so I'm hoping that it'll inspire other attorneys to take these types of cases on as well.
Sorry, you say it's not your area of expertise. That's pretty dang impressive considering we're talking about a $50+ million judgment. So for that not being your area of expertise, that's pretty incredible. What would you like survivors watching this to understand about what their legal options are now?
Yeah, I think we've talked to the client who is really happy about the court sort of recognizing the harm this way. And what she wanted to say is, we need to believe survivors, and survivors need to feel empowered to come forward. That is the biggest takeaway. But in addition to that, I think it's worth taking a moment to reflect on what's happening in the world with all the news about Jeffrey Epstein and a lot of discussion about sort of powerful, elite, wealthy individuals engaged in sex trafficking. Trafficking doesn't always look that way. Trafficking can be harm perpetrated by an intimate partner. It's often against a U.S. citizen, not necessarily somebody, being brought in from another country and held in a warehouse against their will. And I really hope that this lawsuit might shed some light, too, on the huge and enormous scope of how big the problem is, how little has been done to address it, and what the problem actually looks like.
Then on the opposite side of that spectrum, what sort of message do you hope that this judgment, that these damages send to traffickers, not just in this area, but in the country or in the world?
Trafficking doesn't pay. When I was talking to one of my colleagues, he very artfully described this amount of judgment as unpersoning. Is basically saying you're never going to be able to get a loan, you're never going to be able to buy anything, you won't be able to have a house, you won't be able to do any of those things, right? A $50 million judgment is not something that's going to be, written off or paid in a day. I want people to understand that trafficking has consequences. People think they can get away with stuff. They think, oh, if the police don't catch me or whatever, then I'm getting off scot-free and I don't have to worry about this. And these women aren't going to say anything or these men aren't going to say anything. And that's not the case.
Elizabeth, Sarah, congratulations. Well done. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Have a wonderful day, of course. All right, guys, just about 2 o'clock in a couple of minutes. Chicago Live rolls on. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Just about 1:58 on Chicago Live. Much more coming up over the course of the rest of the show. Let's take a live look outside, see how things are looking. We just spoke with Chief Meteorologist Emily Wall, and you know what? That's exactly how she described it. There is a little bit of a sort of a haze over the area. I'm looking south from our studio right now. We are, of course, on the corner of Michigan and Lake, and I always kind of use from our window. That's looking out. That's on Michigan Avenue right now. You see a couple of folks with umbrellas, but making their way around. Looks just a little bit wet out there. I'm, from my perspective, looking south toward the South Loop, and I can see some of the buildings in the South Loop, but it's a little hazy. It's a little soupy looking, as some of our meteorologists like to say. But our entire team has just been on it all week, providing the most up-to-date, valuable storm information. These storms have been rolling through since Sunday. And like I said, when Emily was here, they were sending out emails to the station about having crews ready and available and willing to go into the wee hours of the night, because you know what? Storms do not work on a 9 to 5 basis, and some of these very serious storms that were coming through very late at night. So our entire team, I know Mike Kaplan is often going live from Studio C in his home. We've got whether it be Emily or Caitlin or JD, we've got the whole team available. They've basically really been working 24/7. to bring the latest information. And you always want to download that Fox 32 weather app, because you know what, these storms, they're going to continue. They might be a little bit south right now, as Emily was saying, but these storms are going to continue at least, you know, into Saturday, as Emily was saying. And you want to stay up to date on the latest, and that's a great way to do it. That, along with the Fox 32 app, you're always going to get the latest up to date weather information from our entire team, no matter where literally in the world they are. So for now, it is 2 o'clock. Much more to come on Chicago Live. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back. Just after, what are we going to call it, 2:02 here on Chicago Live. I was talking about this at the top of the show. If you are of a certain generation or of a certain age, then you probably have fond memories of going to the mall. And there's a good chance that if you have fond memories of going to the mall, that at some point in your life, you at least walked by a Claire's. If not, went into a Claire's. If not, got your ears pierced at a Claire's. And Claire's is now giving that memory that so many people have a major makeover for an entirely new generation. So the retailer is rolling out upgraded training, enhanced clinical and safety standards, redesigned piercing stations, and a larger selection of jewelry across its 900 stores here in the States and in Canada. We're going to bring in Jillian Queff, the Chief Merchandising Officer with Claire's. Jillian, good to see you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
Of course, I'm going to ask you, are your earrings from Claire's?
Absolutely, and
Well
I
done.
just got a new piercing.
What, did you get it done at Claire's?
I sure did.
Well done. Well done. That would have been really awkward if you didn't. Talk to me about some of the feedback that you guys got. You talk about doing this for a new generation. What are some of the feedback that told you guys that this needed to happen?
Absolutely. So we really love listening to our customer, and she told us just how important it was that our experience was worthy of her time. We know she loves to touch and feel and explore before she makes the commitment of piercing. So we redesigned our piercing experience with that in mind, with an inspiration bar that allows her to touch and try on earring trees and make sure that she can see what she looks like in those selfies before she can make that commitment to pierce. And then we added selfie mirrors to the experience because we know this customer has to share everything she does with all of her friends on social. Even if she can't get her ears pierced online, she can certainly show her friends what it's like to get her ears pierced at Claire's with the selfie mirrors.
You know, there are so many people, as I was mentioning, that have very nostalgic memories of Claire's. I literally, in commercial break, just texted my girlfriend and said, "Did you ever go to a Claire's?" And she said, "Oh yeah, all the time." And so, what is that balance of changing for a new generation, but also not losing what past generations fell in love with when they used to go into these stores?
Absolutely. We have been so lucky to have such an amazing brand awareness and have so many people have amazing memories of what it's like when they went to Claire's, and that nostalgia, you know, is so important, but it only gets you so far. And we know that's what makes us cool to Mom, but what makes us cool to her is really understanding what the role of Claire's needs to be. And we really see it as a playground for girlhood. You know, so many of our competitors are pushing her up and aging her up. And we really want Claire's to be the space where we celebrate that moment of girlhood where she really hasn't got it figured out yet. And all those first moments, whether it's your first best friend necklace or your first journal for your first crush or your first piercing, you know, Claire's is there for you for that, just the way it was for me when I was growing up. We feel so lucky to be able to provide that for Gen Alpha girls today.
It's so funny that you brought up piercing, because whenever I heard that we were going to be chatting today, my first thought was, you know, I am of the age where, like, I grew up going to the mall. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't necessarily frequent Claire's, but I remember hearing that, like, oh, that's the place where you go to get your ears pierced. Was that kind of an accidental thing, or was it always meant to be the go-to spot when someone wanted to get their ears pierced for the first time?
Jake, we have owned piercing for almost 50 years, and it is the heartbeat of what we do. And it's definitely the trust where we've earned the trust of our customers for many, many years. And it's where we know we earn the trust of our customer first today. You know, it is definitely the destination to come get pierced. And now we've got an assortment and an experience that, you know, is worthy of that.
You know, a lot of parents that are now bringing, you know, their young child into Claire's for the first time, they were at some point the young child that was being brought into Claire's for the first time. So what feedback, I mean, I know, you know, as Will Smith says, parents just don't understand, but what is the balance of listening to the parents? Because now that they might be the uncool one, they were the ones that were there first.
Absolutely. Well, Mom definitely told us that we need a space that is safe and that is a little bit more clinical than I think what we were providing previously. And one of the things we did is we really separated the piercing space from the rest of the merchandise in the store to give it its own destination so that it is safe and clinical. We upgraded our clinical standards, as you mentioned before. All of our piercing specialists have been retrained and have the highest standards. And so, you know, I think we are still keeping it cool for her, but definitely listening to Mom and making that experience something she can trust and feel safe and comfortable coming to.
Listen, I know, you know, whenever you make a major decision, the last thing you want to be deemed by the younger generations is uncool, but I don't think any generation is ever going to say, hey, higher safety standards and making sure everything is pristine and clean is uncool. I'd imagine, I mean, I kind of love that you guys did that. That feels like a pretty major, because and I'm trying, like I said, it's been, you know, a while since I was a kid roaming through a mall, but I seem to remember being able to, like, look through the glass and, like, the chair was kind of just right there, surrounded by people doing their shopping. Am I remembering that right?
You are right. You're remembering it right. And the chair is still in the window, now featuring a big neon sign that says "Now Piercing," so that you can see it from across the mall, just in case you need to get inspired. But absolutely, we've made the space a far more dedicated clinical space where you can actually see the merchandise, make sure that everything is to your standards. And also we've got distressors in case you might be a little bit unsure about your piercing and you might want to hold a little squishy to calm you down. We've got lollipops and certificates for everyone who gets a piercing, and fantastic goodie bag that we have upgraded with lots of fun things for the customers as well.
Jillian, I remember in school, people showing up and having their ears pierced, and other kids being jealous because their parents wouldn't let them have their ears pierced yet. What do you say? What is your advice to a parent that their kid is starting to ask for it and they're ready for it, but they're just not sure it's the right time? How is there good advice on your part for deciding whether it's the right time or not?
I think every time is the right time.
Oh, I'm sure you do, Jillian.
No, I think what I would say to that is that, like I said, we are here for all the moments of girlhood. And if she doesn't have it figured out yet, that's okay. She can come back. She can get one done. And if she's scared, she can come back and get the second done another day if that's what makes her happy. We're here to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and that they remember that experience as something that is a milestone that they'll have forever, that is a positive one. And so, if they're unsure, bring them in, let them try it out, let them sit in the chair, and then we'll see what happens.
I know we're talking about, bringing young girls in. A young man, young boy wants to get an ear pierced?
Everyone. We are an equal opportunity piercer. And, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is that we are the most accessible piercing experience out there. And our opening price, we're free piercing always, but our opening price piercing set is $29.99, as it has been, even though we're upgrading our experience. That doesn't mean that our pricing is going up and that it's coming out of reach for our customers. We know that we need to be there for her. Like you said, it's about being in the mall and having a destination in the mall that's right for her and is for her for piercing, and also has all of her stuff, the things that she wants to have and the viral products that she wants to share with her friends on social.
Do you draw the line at ears, or do you guys do sometimes they do the nose piercing? Do you guys do other eyebrows and all that thing?
Depending upon the location and state regulations, but absolutely, we do have nose piercing, and we can do several different cartilage piercings as well.
And is there an age limit on anyone who can come in and get a piercing?
Absolutely not. You come on in, and you're welcome, Jake. We'll take you in whenever you want.
When is the sort of the new Claire's 2.0? When are the remodels starting?
So we just opened our first location in Santa Anita, California last week, and we have the balance of our fleet rolling out across the next 2 to 3 months. So we're very excited.
Let me ask you this. How often do you see, maybe a mom or, a parent bring their child in and the kid gets a piercing and then the parent goes, well, while I'm here, I guess I could just go ahead and get another one too?
Jake, you would be surprised. I saw this happen 3 times last week. It is very surprising, but piercing is an impulse purchase, and it's definitely inspiring when you come in and see our experience. It'll make you want to get pierced.
You know what? That sounds like a Chicago Live segment in the making. I'll just do the entire show from a Claire's piercing chair. And you know what? From when the show kicks off at 1 to when we wrap at 4, it'll be just a complete change for my on-air appearance.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Okay. I'll tell you what. My greatest fear right now is that someone downstairs, our executive producer Jim Selly, is going, yeah, that's a really good idea. We're going to do that. All right, Jillian, one more time. Let people know when in the area of Chicago we can come out and see all of this.
Right across over the next 2 months, you'll be able to see Woodfield's our flagship location. So check us out.
Okay. All right. Well, I love that a part of what was a core childhood memory is still, it's still chugging along. It's still here. Jillian Queff, Chief Merchandising Officer with Claire's, bringing back the nostalgic memories. We appreciate you taking the time. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Jake.
Of course. All right, guys, it is 2:13. Bosses, Jim, if you're watching the newsroom, please don't make me do a segment where I get pierced live on television. More to come right here on Good Day Chicago. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 16 on Chicago Live. Let's take a live look outside. Can we bring up that the live image of over at the Bean? Because last time we looked at that going into commercial break. Yeah, take a look at that. To me, that is the ultimate indicator. Sometimes we take some of these live images and it's difficult to tell if it's raining outside. Umbrellas are always a good sign, but I always love to look and see, are people starting to huddle under the Bean? And before we went to break, we saw a large group of people all huddled under Cloud Gate trying to escape the rain out here at the corner of Michigan and Lake where our studio is. I'm looking out the window. I see a lot of people walking around with umbrellas. And yeah, it's just looking wet outside. We've been dealing with a lot of weather issues that people are continuing to feel the effects of. Many thousands of people in our area into Indiana are still without power. It is a very serious issue that isn't necessarily going away anytime soon. Chief Meteorologist Emily Wall is just up here telling us that we're going to have some severe storms a little bit south of us right now, and it could even potentially impact the air and water show into the weekend. Take a live look at the skyline right now, and it's just, you got the clouds hanging over, a couple of boats out there, but it's just kind of a wet and hazy day, which is the perfect segue. Oh, look at that. I mean, that live image tells you everything you need to know. It is, needless to say, it's not the best of weather for a Chicago Air and Water show. It's not great beach weather, but it is the kind of weather that makes our next segment really important. We're going to talk about Team Rubicon, saying that it is monitoring the severe weather damage in the Chicago area, prepared to help with recovery efforts if requested. And the veteran-led disaster response organization says it has logged the weather event and can quickly launch an operation once a county makes an official request. We're going to bring in Stephen Johnson, Operations Associate with Team Rubicon. Stephen, first of all, thank you for your time, man. I hope all of you guys are staying safe.
No, thankful for the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what we are capable of doing and what we have been doing. And just thank you again for us to, just to be here and speak more about Team Rubicon.
Of course, Stephen. Actually, that feels like a good sort of jump in for people who are unfamiliar with what Team Rubicon is. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Oh, 100%. So we are a veteran-led nonprofit humanitarian organization, and our focus is on serving communities prior, during, and then after the effects of a disaster or a crisis. And so that can look like a variety of different things, whether it be hazard mitigation, mucking and gutting out a home during a disaster, and then supporting that long-term recovery after we finish deployment.
And you guys are going into these communities sort of at the request of the county, right? Whatever the county may be. Can you tell us who activated you guys right now?
So we've been having consistent conversations with not only the county, Cook County in particular, but of course the COAS and the VOAS, the community organizations active in disaster, as well as the volunteer organizations active in disaster. So we've had consistent meetings to figure out how we can best assess the damage and then get Team Rubicon and our folks out there to assess as well, and then figure out what the scope of work is so we can get some good work done for the residents of Cook County.
Stephen, obviously since Sunday, we've basically been talking nonstop about these storms, not just the new storms, the storms that are on the way, the storms that are blowing through at any given moment, but then also the effects of these storms. Thousands of people without power. You've got trees falling and damage in different neighborhoods and different suburbs around the area. What are you seeing right now in terms of potential recovery needs following some of these storms that we've seen?
So, of course, just with the high pace of winds that we had, especially in Cook County, we see some trees and some debris removal opportunities, especially when we're focusing on, the population of seniors and people who have really unmet needs and trying to figure out how they can best go about, recuperating after this last storm. We have some opportunities to do debris removal on those properties, get some chainsaw crews out there, cut, maybe do some muck and guts depending on how much the water damage is. But a lot of that will be in the next 24 hours in particular, site surveying and just working with the county and the other groups that I mentioned to assess so that we're not stepping on each other's toes and we're doing the best possible job to work efficiently and effectively with those other groups.
Stephen, can you just break down the logistics of why it is that you guys need to be requested specifically, and then once that request comes through, then what's step number one? Then what do you guys do once boots are on the ground?
That's a really good question, Jake. And so the reason that we don't want to just self-deploy or, take it into our own hands is because we have some really great partners with the county and around the state, as well as those community and volunteer organizations who are also, supporting the work that we do. And so not only just not stepping on each other's toes, but they might have capabilities that, we don't have and vice versa. And so you want to first have those conversations and communicate with the parties that be to make sure that we're all on the same page about who can go where and what are those places that have unmet needs that Team Rubicon in particular can go assess and then try to get some work done for those folks. And then to answer the second question, we coordinate with our volunteers who we affectionately call gray shirts. And we have folks who've been in emergency management spaces for quite a while now who support the planning of these operations or site surveys or even getting a recon team out there responding with the county and, just assessing what we can do and then going on. And then within the next 24, 48 hours, getting the team out there with some chainsaws or, tarping gear, whatever the case, so that we can go and get some stuff done effectively.
Stephen, is it still accurate that Cook County and Lake County have not yet requested assistance?
So Cook County and Northeast Illinois Metro have both requested us for assistance. And so in the last 24 hours in particular, that's when those conversations that I mentioned have been ramping up. And we've been talking to all of the area planners, all of the people who are responsible for logistics, the secretaries, everybody who kind of make these decisions happen. And so to answer your question, 2 requests for assistance, one through the county and then one through the community organizations active in disaster in Metro Illinois, in the Northeast region, which would of course be Chicago.
I'd imagine, listen, we've had some weather this summer, to say the least. You responded to storms in Maryville last month. Is there anything to learn from one storm to another, from one recovery effort to another? Is there anything that you've learned in the storms that you've experienced so far, just this summer alone, that find themselves applicable with the week that we're having right now?
Yeah, that's a really great question as well. And the one thing I can harp on is just to say that the relationships, have a big part in all of this taking place, right? Like we want to make sure that we're privy to the information that we all need from a state level, a county level, and at a city level. And so if we're not understanding who that person to go to is when a disaster hits, then we're kind of left in the blue about what could possibly happen. And so speaking to your point about Maryville, I want to say that was June 15th to the 24th that we were there pretty much immediately after that storm hit. And so working with Maryville Fire Department, working with the volunteer organizations who are active in disaster, in particular in the state of Indiana, now that happened in June, we were able to be more effective in communicating with them kind of going forward. And now that these storms have hit and crossed into the Indiana state border. And so that's a really good point. And I think just to drive it home, we were able to get 70 work orders done, and we had about 30 gray shirts, again, who are our volunteers, deploy every single day, working to get some of that stuff done in Maryville, Indiana. So having the relationships with those organizations in that city and state go a long way. But then also we have gray shirts. We can fill the void if need be, but the relationships really make what our response is going to be.
Stephen, just like I said, from this summer alone, you guys have had a lot of experience. Unfortunately, it'd be great if you guys weren't a necessity, but here we are. You guys very much are a necessity, particularly with the kind of weather we've had just this week alone. What do you think are some of the mistakes that people make whenever they are cleaning up their own area after a storm?
I think also kind of piggybacking off my last answer, but going a little bit further, sometimes we don't know who the perfect person to go to is. And so we might feel like we can just do it all on our own. But especially in the disaster or in the crisis, we need those relationships and we need those governing bodies and we need people who are committed to this work on a professional level to work together with those individuals who might want to volunteer, who might have all the passion in the world to get some of this stuff done, but to do it effectively and to do it safely and to coordinate with those who have professional experience doing this. I think that could be a dire mistake especially even for our gray shirts. You know, we often have people who want to go off and say, hey, I have experience in this, especially in a rural county or somewhere where there isn't a big presence or response. But just to have them be patient and wait for us to get communication with the city and state, and then go from there, helping them to effectively serve.
Stephen, what should a homeowner do right now if they feel like they need a little help with recovery efforts and maybe don't know where to turn to right now?
Awesome question. So number one, I would just say be privy to what the city and state are doing in your county in particular. But if you feel like that's something that Team Rubicon could assess or assist with, then to go to teamrubiconusa.org. And especially if you would want to be a gray shirt, which we would love to have more volunteers, right, to come and help support this work, especially in your community, you can go to teamrubiconusa.org and, you know, get information about how to become a gray shirt. Also, if you want to donate, do the same thing. But going back to your question, if you need assistance, you can reach out to us as well and put out a request for assistance. But also, again, just be privy to what your city, state, and county are doing so that you have the correct information going forward.
Stephen, I'm going to ask you a personal question. How did you become a gray shirt?
So I will say I've been in this position as an operations associate for Illinois and Wisconsin in the last 50 days. And so it's been a wild ride in terms of Mother Nature, taking care of Illinois and Wisconsin in particular. But I spent 6 years with a national service program called AmeriCorps, and 2 of those were with FEMA Corps in particular. And then I spent the last 4 years, or really 6, multiple mobile crisis teams in the city of Chicago, as well as being a community organizer in the community that I'm from in Chicago called Inglewood. And so, you know, doing a lot of volunteer management over the last decade plus, as well as having a vested interest in crisis response and disaster response, that's what led me to being with Team Rubicon. And so far, definitely seeing the high quality work, as well as just the passionate volunteers that we have that I fit right into.
Stephen, did you just say that you started with this role and the role that you're in now 50 days ago?
Give or take. I might be rounding down. It might have been 60. It just feels like, but yeah, it's been an interesting last couple of months for sure.
Yeah, you have had a hell of a 50 days, man. Are you like, you okay, man? You need to sit down? You need a bottle of water? You need a nap or anything?
Well, I'm happy that you say that, Jake. You know, one of our cultural values is change your socks, right? And that just speaks to us making sure that we have everything that we need to be the best version of ourselves. And so, you know, with the tornadoes in Wisconsin, what's going on here home in the south suburbs and across the state, definitely changed my socks and look to my support circle, as well as just going to the Montrose Bird Sanctuary or anywhere where I can find some serenity, right? But, you know, that just brings me back to myself and making sure that, again, I can be the best version of myself for the gray shirts and Illinois and Wisconsin as we respond to these disasters.
Stephen, I can guarantee you that you are the best version of yourself, my friend. I hope you have found that serenity that you're looking for. You know, you mentioned, you know, if people wanting to help out. Listen, there's that old, I bring this up a lot, there's that old, Mr. Rogers expression where he talks about, you know, look for the helpers. You know, whenever things are down, there are always going to be helpers there. If someone is listening to this and they're thinking, hey, like, I'll help my neighbor. I want to find serenity with Stephen. How can they get one of those really cool, fashionable gray shirts?
Well, that's awesome as well, because if you want to talk to me about it, I'm a natural yapper. So if you want to talk to me about being a gray shirt, you can feel free to contact me. But then, of course, just going back to your question, teamrubiconusa.org has all of the information that you need, even if you want to get in contact with me for that reason. But especially if you want to become a gray shirt, we would love to have you and get the information from there so they can, you know, refer you to the best point of contact. And then finally, you know, this takes a lot to deploy across the world, especially not charging residents anything, right? We do all of this at no cost to the homeowners. And so if you want to donate, please go to teamrubiconusa.org as well, and then go from there.
Stephen, stand up. Let me see your shirt. Let me see your gray shirt. Look at you. I look at it. It looks good.
This is a different kind.
You know what? It's gray, and it's a shirt. It counts, man. You guys really need to put change your socks across the back. I feel like that's just stitched on a small pillow, man. That's a great life expression there.
I'll work on it. I'll talk to logistics.
I would hope that Team Rubicon has bigger concerns than my fashion advice for all of them. Stephen Johnson, I got to tell you, man, big fan of you. Big fan of you. continue the great work. Give our best to all the gray shirts out there, and more than anything, just be safe. All right.
Will do. Thank you so much, Jake, and I'm a big fan of yours as well. And have a great rest of your day, also.
All right, take care, buddy. All right, guys, just about 2:31 here on Chicago Live. Much more to come. We'll be right back. Welcome back. 2:33 on Chicago Live. Following that string of storms that we've talked about, we're going to dip in live, hear the latest from ComEd. They're out at Homewood Flossmoor High School. Let's listen in.
Tremendously with the efforts.
Yeah, if the weather would cooperate for a few days, that would be fantastic. But again, this is what we do. The team knows the mission, get our customers restored, and we'll work through whatever we need to make that happen.
You mentioned grid resilience efforts in recent years. I was wondering if any of those projects have taken place in the south suburbs, or are we in a future state?
No, they've actually taken place all across the ComEd territory. Our engineering teams are constantly reviewing data, customer impact, value of the investment, where it could provide the most customer value. So it's not one area, it's really all over the territory, looking again at where it can provide the most value. And ultimately, we want to be able for the grid to reroute power on its own without any manual intervention.
Barely
people go to get updates on what's happening?
Sure, you can access our multiple online platforms. Call us at 1-800-EDISON-1 for any updates. Obviously, stay away from any down power lines. If you have any questions regarding, if you've taken damage to your property or your service, reach out to us when those repairs are made. We will have teams on the street 24/7 until the last customer is restored, and we will have enhanced staffing even after that, repairing pockets of the grid that may not be out of power, but need attention, and also restoring customers after their repairs are complete.
A lot of people are wondering about burying the lines. Is that an option that's on your radar at all?
That is an option. There's a lot of factors that go into that decision, but it is something that we do consider, working with municipal leaders and regulators pretty frequently. Anything else? All right. Well, again, thanks for staying out here with me in the rain, and appreciate your time.
All right, that was the latest from ComEd. They were providing some updates while at Homewood Flossmoor High School. We're going to shift gears for a moment here on Chicago Live. So a federal contract that funded legal services for thousands of unaccompanied immigrant children has expired, raising concerns among Chicago advocates that some young people could face deportation without an attorney. We're going to bring in Hillary Richardson, Associate Director for Children's Protection, National Immigrant Justice Center. Hillary, thank you for taking the time. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So what does the end of this federal contract mean for immigrant children here in the city of Chicago?
Right. So for us and for other advocates for immigrant children, we're seeing this as just a deliberate and ongoing attack on the structures that have existed for decades to serve immigrant children. I think it's important for folks to know that in the immigration system, there is no right to appointed counsel, regardless of whether you can afford one, even for children who are detained. So for detained unaccompanied children for decades, there's been a system of legal service providers who have existed to try to fill that gap, to provide that legal representation in immigration court. But that federal contract ended on July 31st. And since then, it has been chaotic. It's been unclear what's happening. Many of the providers, the legal service providers nationwide, who were providing services under that contract have been forced to close their doors due to lack of funding. In the Chicagoland area, NIJC is continuing to help our child clients so they're under funds for as long as we can. But it is still unclear what's happening going forward. And this system has entirely failed these detained immigrant children.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there a number? Do we know how many children in Illinois could potentially lose access to an attorney?
So from NIJC's perspective, I would put that number in the hundreds, simply based on our own clients who we've served and continue to serve over the years. Because these cases last so long, we are looking at hundreds of cases right now that we have committed to, but that are now unfunded with the end of this contract.
And how young are these children that we're talking about?
So unaccompanied children range in age from babies to up to 18 years old, right? An unaccompanied child is simply a child who has come to the United States, and when they're apprehended, they are not in the custody of their parent or legal guardian. And so there may be very young children who are coming with a teen parent. There may be children of any age who are simply coming with an adult who is not their parent or guardian, so an older sibling or a family member, who are then placed within this system. So our staff work with very, very young children up to teenagers. And all of these kids at this point are facing longer and longer times in detention with the dismantling of this structure, and are facing more and more uncertainty with the defunding of these legal service providers. At this point, it doesn't seem like the government has a specific plan in place for representation. And so for the kids who don't have a legal service provider, they are forced to appear alone in immigration court in front of an ICE, essentially a federal prosecutor, and the consequences are their deportation.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. How is a child expected to know what? I mean, most adults wouldn't know what to do in that situation. So what are the expectations of a 7-year-old whenever they're put into that situation?
Exactly. That is the problem. It's not only a language barrier, it's a developmental capacity barrier. Immigration law has been compared to the tax code in terms of how complex it is. And so even with an immigration attorney, it is an incredibly complex system. And because there is no appointed counsel, there's no one who's automatically there. If these contractors are gone, yes, children are going to go into immigration court. There's an interpreter and there's an immigration judge and there is an immigration prosecutor, right? The government counsel for ICE, whose intent is to demand the child's deportation. And there is not an option for them if there's no one else who is able to step in there. So NIJC is continuing to represent the kids that we have contracted with, but we are no longer on the contract to be able to access kids who come into detention under this new contract. And like I've said, it's been very chaotic as far as the government appears to also be scrambling to figure out who might be able to come in and represent these children going forward.
Yeah, but for any of the children who might potentially have like a pending application for protection? Is it still a possibility that they could be deported, or are they in a separate situation?
Right. No, that's a problem that we're seeing as well. So for our represented clients, many of them who are eligible for protection, particularly those who have been abused, abandoned, or neglected, may even have petitions pending for what's called special immigrant juvenile status. It was created specifically for this vulnerable population of children. But because that is such a long process from that status to a final green card, we are seeing judges enter orders of removal against children who are eligible for and have pending this protective status. They're simply not acknowledging it as fully protective from deportation. And so even though that status exists, we are looking at orders of removal.
Hillary, what is Ashley's Law?
So Ashley's Law is a law that was passed, I believe, earlier this year by Illinois state legislators in order to protect specifically unaccompanied immigrant children who are detained in shelters in Illinois. It is a pathway for those kids to access special immigrant juvenile status, and it allows them to access the Illinois courts in order to get the orders that they need, establishing that abuse or abandonment or neglect. And so NIGC was able to, for our children who we represented earlier this year, scramble with the passage of that law to try to get those protective orders to protect our clients. And we have many clients now who have those orders, who have SIJS pending. One of them has already been ordered removed. We are seeing the immigration judges demand that we file something additional in court, despite the fact that we're alleging, no, these kids have been determined by a court to be eligible for this protection. They have those pending applications. But it's really unfortunate because Illinois state legislators stepped up to provide this protection for this vulnerable group. And we're seeing immigration judges continue to push those cases towards removal orders if nothing else is filed with the court.
Well, to that point, I was going to ask, are you seeing a lot of asylum hearings scheduled within a short amount of time without a lot of notice?
Yes. So at the same time as all of this sort of chaos is happening with the removal of funding, we're also seeing that nothing is slowing down for these kids. Their court hearings, especially for the detained children, are becoming more frequent. They're being pushed more to file relief or face an order of deportation. And then we are also seeing a deluge nationwide of asylum office interviews scheduled for individuals who filed as children. At NIJC alone, we've seen almost 100. You get approximately 4 to 6 weeks to prepare for such an interview. That means hours and hours of preparation time on the part of the attorney, on the part of the child. And unfortunately, some of these are cases who have been delayed for multiple years, even a decade sometimes, through no fault of the child's own. They filed their application, and now, 8 or 10 years later, they're being asked to, in a short period of time, prepare and defend themselves against this application. So the kids are being squeezed from both ends, and the advocates are being defunded and also put under a great deal of pressure, all to move the kids essentially towards a deportation machine instead of an actual due process.
Hillary Richardson, Associate Director for Children's Protection, National Immigrant Justice Center. An important topic. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for covering it.
Of course. All right, guys, just about 2:45 on Chicago Live. Much more to come. We'll be right back. Welcome back, 246 on Chicago Live. Listen, we've been talking about the weather all week. I'm looking out the window. I'm seeing a lot of people with umbrellas. We're going to keep talking about the weather and the ripple effects of that weather as long as it is a part of our news cycle, and it very much is right now. You see a lot of people out there. That's Michigan and Lake. The ground looks wet. You're seeing some people walking by without umbrellas, but some people walking by with them. I'm seeing more people out my window with than without. You got a lot of people kind of huddled under the bean, under Cloud Gate right now. That's usually a pretty good indicator that a little something's coming through. People trying to stay. And then oftentimes when you take a look at one of our shots and just the camera itself needs a good spit shot. I mean, look at that. That's the one. That's the shot. That tells you everything you need to know about the weather right now. Obviously, one of the big stories coming out of the weather is the power. So many people without power right now. Utility crews are working to make that storm damaged power line safe. Crews are first, they're shutting off the damaged power lines. They have to assess poles and equipment and clear a lot of dangerous debris before the repairs can even begin. And we're going to bring in Bill Neisman, the business manager of IBEW Local 9 in Chicago. Bill, thank you. I know you guys are very busy, so we really do appreciate you taking the time, sir.
Oh, not a problem. I appreciate the opportunity. So
yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Yes, sir. We wanted to start out this way. Tell people what the IB of the IBEW stands for.
So it's International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. It's a union organization, about 750 to 800,000 members nationwide throughout the U.S. and Canada, and striving to get to 1 million.
And I like the B. I like that brotherhood aspect of it because, and we were just talking about this in the break, this is a very dangerous. Before we're going to even get into specifics of what you guys are seeing right now, I very much want to acknowledge this is very dangerous work. What it is that you guys do. So can we just take a moment and make sure people understand the risk that the men and women that are a part of your it's serious work.
Yeah, on a normal day when the weather's great, the men and women are working on 12,000 volt power lines, whether it's underground, overhead. They'll work on transmission lines that may be live on one side of 345,000 volts. So the job is very dangerous, but during storm conditions, when power lines are down and people can hook up generators and possibly backfeed the lines, we have to be extra cautious. The men and women have to be extra cautious out there because it's that much more dangerous for everybody involved.
I know that to be true. Bill, what are the crews seeing on the ground right now?
So I've had my reps out there. Our crews are all over the place, and we're turning a lot of people back on. Unfortunately, yesterday we had another storm that kind of rolled through, and I think it took probably an extra 30,000 people out. In the grand scheme, that's not a ton, thank God, but it's rough when you get some things put back on and people are happy, and then all of a sudden another storm rolls through and it winds up sometimes taking out the same area. And we're seeing a lot of that. But the men and women out there are working 16 hours straight. They're working around the clock. They're rotating shifts between us, Local 196, which does the same thing, but to the west of us on the utilities property, and then Local 15, who represents all the people in-house at the utility here. We all work together to try and get these storms remedied as quick as possible.
And and I know it's probably felt, because it is this week, that the storms are just not stopping, that they're just rolling through over and over again. What are some of the biggest safety dangers following storms like this?
Well, for the public, it's just stay in the house. Obviously, don't go in your backyards, wherever your power lines are, whether it's overhead or underground. Just stay away from it. If you see them down on the streets, steer clear. For our members, again, it's assessing the situation, making sure that the lines that they come up on, they what they call grounding them to make sure that they are 100% dead, and that there's wires in place so that if it ever did become hot, it would take it to ground instead of hurting someone. The biggest, I think, fear out there is if somebody hooks up a generator wrong and backfeeds a line, which could generate 12,000 volts onto a line that has been already de-energized. So those are the biggest fears, and the men and women out there, like I said, have to know what they're doing and keep their head on a swivel and always be watching each other's backs.
How do your crews determine which damage gets repaired first?
So the utility has an in-depth storm center, and they assess every request that comes through, and then they have people that will go out and kind of assess the situation, let them know what they're going to need, what's entailed, and how many people are out. I think they usually start with the emergency spots, anything tied to hospitals, airports, nursing homes, and then they go after the biggest outages that they can and then work their way down so you can get as many people back in power as soon as possible.
And
they dispatch us the tickets. We go out there, make sure that everything is safe, and then figure out how we're going to proceed to put the poles back up, the wire back up, and get the individuals turned back on.
And I know timing can be tricky just because you never know case for case how difficult something's going to be. And then also, as you said, just when one storm blows through, another one seems to be on its way. But what would you say is the average time to get someone's power turned back on?
So in something like this where you have almost 500,000, nowadays, thank God, and I say that tongue-in-cheek, it's 4 days, maybe 5. I mean, 12 years ago, before they really invested in the system, we were looking at a storm like this that would be 8 days long.
Wow.
Here and anywhere else throughout the country. But the utilities invested heavily in the infrastructure. And so we're able to get a lot of people in from out of town, a lot better than what we were able to networking. And so the storms are 3 to 4 days a lot of times. Worst case scenario, 5. And like I said, I know that sounds like a long time because it is. But back in the day, it was 7 to 8 days. And you go to some of the other states, and it's 8 to 9, 10 days sometimes to get power restored. So while it sounds like a lot, it's nowhere near what others deal with in other places.
Well, to that point, what are some of the misconceptions that you think maybe people have about power outages and how difficult it is for you guys to get out there and get this power turned back on?
Well, I think, everybody, it's like walking in the house. You flip a switch and you just kind of expect the power to be on, and you're hoping not to be out for more than a few hours. But I think the public realizes that it's a daunting task to get the power back on. We've had men and women, whether it be here or down on a hurricane, and people have been out for a week and a half, and they finally get the power back on. And the people out there are actually cheering and cooking up food and trying to feed the workers. They're really appreciative. And I think the vast majority of the customers are appreciative, even though it is frustrating to be without power, especially if you see a truck sitting there for maybe a little while and you say, why aren't they getting out? Well, they're waiting to get released to say, hey, that line has been de-energized from the main circuit. Now you can go ahead and start your progress and start rebuilding.
Bill, when you guys are dealing with power outages of this scale, of this magnitude, of these kinds of numbers, do you guys ever run out of supplies? Do you ever run out of the equipment needed to pull this off? At times you do, but the utility is stocked up, and what they do ahead of time, when a storm hits, they start staging material in all the different locations that they have. And then our contractors can run in there and pick up material or send somebody back to pick up something that we may not have or might have missed when we were lining out the job. So worst case scenario, you get on the phone with one of your buddies at one of the other companies, say, are you in the area? Do you have an extra cross arm or an extra cutout that we need to fuse this so we can bring these people back up? They'll run it over. We all work together that way to make sure that we're sharing and getting everybody back on as soon as we can. So, it feels weird to ask for a message to people who don't have power while on television. But if somehow this interview were to end up in the hands of someone who maybe is without power right now and who is understandably frustrated, what message would you like to send to them?
I would say, hey, we share your frustration. I've been out the last handful of days myself at home, but just keep in mind that the men and women out there are working 16 hours a day in the heat and the rain, the snow, whatever it is. They're working continuously. They have shifts going 24/7. They're doing the best that they can. Mother Nature caused this. We're going to come through and do everything we can, and we'll get you back on as quickly as possible. But please be patient with us. We are definitely working and doing everything that we can.
All right, Bill. Thank you for the work that all the men and women are doing. All of you stay safe and send our best. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Take care. Thanks, Jim.
You too, sir.
Bye.
All right, guys. 2:56 just about. Chicago Live rolls on. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Chicago Live. We're here with a weather update for you. First and foremost, after just talking about power outages, I wanted to show you some of the latest numbers here. And you can take a look around the region that, of course, Northwest Indiana still seems to be one of the hardest hit areas at this point. That said, Cook County still 3,600 or 36,000 that are in the dark, 14,000 in Will County, in Lake County, Indiana, about 150 customers are still without power. But if you take these numbers and then convert it over to a percentage of that particular county, this is still 76.5% of customers that live in Lake County, Indiana, that unfortunately are still without power. But as you were just hearing, crews are very hard at work trying to restore the power in between all of these rounds of showers and thunderstorms, and sometimes severe thunderstorms that we've been experiencing since Tuesday's derecho that came through. Here's a look at the satellite and radar. So right now we are dealing with rain coming through. It's been light to moderate at times. The heavy stuff and the severe thunderstorms actually passed just south of the area. So previously today, we did have a severe thunderstorm watch that was issued for Kankakee County, Newton and Jasper counties. That has been dropped because those storms, again, they passed just south of the region. And for us, we're just picking up the rain. But that said, this evening, tonight, there's going to be a chance that we could be seeing additional rounds of storms, some of which may end up becoming strong or severe. So you can see that we are once again highlighted in a marginal level 1 risk and a slight risk level 2 from the Storm Prediction Center for the remainder of today into tonight. Damaging wind gusts going to be the primary concern. And then looking ahead to tomorrow for your Friday, we're going to have storms coming through, I think more so during the morning, the midday hours. And we could be once again seeing damaging wind gusts, possibly some hail, and we're just going to keep this going right on into Saturday. We have yet another round that's going to be coming through. So the next several days, we're still stuck in this really stormy weather pattern that we're going to continue to see round after round of strong, maybe isolated severe storms. So what's the setup and why are we seeing all of this? Well, this frontal boundary that you see off to our south, it's just been meandering through the area the last several days, and we have round after round of showers and storms that develop right along that. So notice by tomorrow morning, we have storms coming through. Again, some of these may end up becoming strong or severe, so make sure you have ways of getting severe weather alerts. But your Friday morning commute, it's likely going to be a soggy one. Watch for localized ponding as well. We do have a flood watch for a large portion of the area that's going to be remaining in effect, likely until tomorrow morning. And then over the next couple of days, we're just stuck seeing more showers and storms. At least temperatures, though, aren't too hot. Many of the days are going to be right around 80. We'll see you right after the break.
Welcome back. 3:03 on Chicago Live. Just about an hour left of the show, but still a lot more to get to. A new March of Dimes report is highlighting a growing maternity care access problem across the U.S. The organization says that families living in maternity care deserts travel 3 times further on average to reach labor and delivery services. We're going to bring in Michelle Adeniyi, the local director, MCH Collective Impact for March of Dimes. Michelle, thank you for taking the time to talk about this. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So explain a little bit what exactly a maternity care desert is and how widespread is this problem?
Sure. So a maternity care desert is what we call a county that has no obstetric care or no hospital labor and delivery care in their county.
So talk about, obviously, if a pregnant woman and the family has to travel hours for labor and delivery services, I mean, the issues seem self-explanatory, seems common sense, but I mean, this is a very real issue.
Yes, it's a very real issue, and it's often very complex. There's no one challenge that is causing this. This is multi-layered, and so it will also take a multi-layered solution in order to change things. So just to give you an overview, for the United States, 1 in 3 counties are considered a maternity care desert. And that figure hasn't changed in about 10 years, unfortunately. So this has been a consistent issue in America. But here in Illinois, we have 1 in every 2 counties that is considered a maternity care desert. So on average, it normally takes someone, say in my county, about 14 minutes to travel to their, closest hospital. But in maternity care deserts in Illinois, it takes about 3 times that long. And that can have a huge impact on mom and baby's health.
Are these more like rural communities where we were considering, or does it affect more urban areas as well?
Actually, it does affect urban areas, and I can explain the difference, but predominantly, especially for Illinois, it does affect more of our rural communities and counties. But in the urban setting, the effect has to do a lot with the recent hospital closures that we've noticed over the past 2 years. Just in general, for the country, we've already seen 96 reported hospital closures in America. So here, like locally in Chicagoland, we've had a significant amount of hospital closures. That means that labor and delivery units are closed. And in the rural counties, they have that issue, plus they have a shortage of clinicians. So obstetric clinicians, think your OBGYN, midwife, family physician. They have a shortage of those in addition to lack of hospital units, labor and delivery units as well.
What does this mean for families without a reliable source of transportation?
Unfortunately, it really does affect them on multiple levels. This means that it takes longer for them to receive care. It also means that in the event that there's an emergency, it could turn into a longer hospital stay. It also increases the rate of prematurity and NICU admissions. And we also see just complications in general because people aren't getting the care in the appropriate time that they should be. So it really does affect a lot of things outside of just the actual birth.
And what are the barriers that are preventing hospitals and providers from offering these services or just for being available to people without having to drive, 150 miles?
That is a great question. So some of those barriers are high cost, decline in birth volumes, clinician shortages that I mentioned earlier, reimbursement rates also for Medicaid and insurance. They are not keeping up with everything else that's going on in society. And so that is resulting in the lack or the shortage of clinician availability. And when there's a shortage of clinician availability, then that affects the hospital's ability to continue to accept patients. So the maternity care workforce in general needs to be expanded And we really need to create more opportunities for more people to join the workforce. Midwives are a great, part of the healthcare system. And in Illinois, I can say that midwives have been more included in births. They've been able to attend a lot more births, but it's very uneven across, the state as far as like hospitals that actually allow midwives to deliver or allow them to, be in hospital settings. So that is another issue as well. When we don't have appropriate clinicians available and coverage, it's very hard for a labor and delivery unit to sustain itself.
Michelle, you mentioned sort of off the top of our conversation that this is a multi-layered problem. Multi-layered problems require multi-layered solutions. So what are some of the solutions that March of Dimes is pushing to maybe expand access to people?
Yes, so that's literally what we are all about. We're definitely leading the charge in solving some of these most important challenges in maternal and infant health, including access to care. And we're doing that through education, advocacy, innovation, and collaboration. So, for example, we are advocating on policies that will expand Medicaid reimbursement and also extend postpartum coverage for Medicaid, and also, just midwifery access to care as well. We are working on innovative solutions like piloting a doula workforce program through the CVS Health Foundation in various cities in America. And we also have pilot programs here in Chicagoland where we are providing doula support to families that otherwise wouldn't have access to it because they wouldn't be able to afford it. And doulas have been an amazing help to solving these problems. Additionally, we are also working on collaborating. It's going to take a required coordinated effort. So policymakers, health systems, clinicians, employers, community organizations are all a part of that. And last but not least, we have our mom and baby mobile health centers, which we have coming soon to Chicagoland area. And in our mom and baby mobile health centers, we partner with local organizations in the communities that are underserved so that they can allow people to have access to care right in their communities.
I love this. The mobile health centers, any more details on when we're going to get them in Chicago and what areas of Chicago might have the most access to them?
Yes. So we are currently looking at the top of 2027. So first quarter 2027, we should be live. And some of the key areas of Chicagoland that we will be focused on are the south and west sides of Chicagoland, because we noticed that there have been a significant amount of hospital closures and labor and delivery unit closures as well. And we also will.
Hello there. They're actually filming other people, so she's going to go live.
Sorry, Michelle. I think we got to cross over some of our Zoom signals right now.
I'll hold it. Thank you.
All right, guys. Sorry, Michelle. Please continue. Well,
okay. So yes, the mobile health centers will be located in many of our.
Sorry about that, guys. We're going to get Michelle back in just a second. I tell you what, let's go to break. We'll get it figured out. We'll be right back. Michelle, are you back?
Yes.
Beautiful. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Let's get you back in. So the mobile health centers, it's crucial for people that are going to be needing, you said the first quarter maybe of 2027. For people that want to take advantage of some of these programs that you've talked about, let us know how we can get more information.
Yes. So you can visit the marchofdimes.org. And to learn more about our maternity care deserts report, you can visit marchofdimes.org/MCDR.
Thank you very much, Michelle. We appreciate you. Great information. And honestly, we're going to want you back to talk more about the mobile health centers whenever they make their way into Chicago. Thank you for your time.
I love that. Thank you.
All right, guys. Just about 3:13, Chicago Live rolls on. We'll be right back. Welcome back, 3:15 on Chicago Live. We're bringing you a pretty big, incredible update on a story that we've kind of been following for a while here on Fox 32. So a major Wisconsin beagle rescue is now complete. Big Dog Rescue Ranch says it has taken in the final 155 beagles from a facility that had bred the dogs for biomedical research for nearly 60 years. We're going to bring in Lori Simmons, the CEO of Big Dog Rescue Ranch. Lori, thank you for taking the time. We appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having us.
Of course. Tell us a little bit about this effort to bring in these final 155 beagles.
Well, this concludes the closure of Richland Farms. We've rescued over 2,115 beagles out of that facility. Their doors are now permanently closed, and the dogs just arrived here at Big Dog Ranch about 30 minutes ago. We got them all settled into their rooms. They're, for the first time, on solid ground and climate-controlled rooms with staff and volunteers loving on them. So we're all so happy that their lives are about to have a whole new chapter.
How are the dogs doing?
They're actually doing really well. So these last dogs, 145 of them were puppies, under 6 months old. We understand most of them have been part of a clinical trial, some kind of research that they've been under for the past couple months. We don't know what that is, but actually they all look in really good shape. Nobody's skinny. We also got 10 senior moms that have lived their whole life in there, breeding and pumping out puppies, and that really is so true to my heart to have the seniors have fresh air, a comfy bed, grass under their feet, and sunlight, and know that their final chapter in life will be a life of love and compassion.
Whenever you got access to these dogs and you started to bring them in, what kind of initial condition? I know you mentioned some of them were for the most part they were in an okay condition. Were any of them to be concerned? Any of them needing medical attention?
Yes, and I actually can't disclose that as part of my contract, but for the most part, most of them were in pretty good shape physically. Mm-hmm. Emotionally, not so much. They'd lived their entire life in, cages in a metal building, never seeing sunlight or touching solid ground or having, human love. So a lot of them were really, really scared and very shut down and very cautious as humans came toward them. Some came around pretty quickly, the younger ones. The older dogs that have been there a long time, they took a while. So they were ready for adoption at different times, and we didn't let them go until we felt they were emotionally ready for a home.
Sure. You mentioned the new batch that just came in just about 30 minutes ago. What happens in the next couple of days with the new pups that you guys brought in?
Well, they get full evaluations by our veterinary team, vaccinated, full exams, anything that needs to be taken care of with these dogs will be taken care of no matter what the extent is needed. Then they will be spayed and neutered in the next couple weeks. They'll be socialized every day with lots of volunteers and staff loving on them, getting them comfortable with being picked up. They'll be out in the play yards 5 to 6 times a day, getting bathed and, getting ready for a whole new life ahead of them outside of a cage.
And how long will it take before they're ready for adoption?
So the younger puppies, I would say probably about 2 weeks. Some of the older dogs, maybe about 2 to 3 months.
Mm-hmm. And will all 155 of the new ones be available?
All 155 of the new ones will be available. Few of our board members that were up there in Wisconsin with us for this last chapter have decided to adopt. And one of the newscasters that came in has already spoken for one. So I do have a feeling the younger dogs will go pretty quickly. And, you know, we still have about 70 of the ones we picked up 5 weeks ago that are spayed and neutered and also ready for homes, including about 10 senior mamas, ages 7 to 10, that are ready to go now, that are really, really looking for a great home for their last few years.
You know what? We need to give some love to the senior dogs too. Lori, listen, I'm a big advocate of shelters. You know, my pup Daenerys is a rescue dog, and I always tell people, you know, there needs to be a patience and an understanding that comes with adopting a dog from a shelter, or especially a dog that's been through something, right? So what advice would you give someone who is looking to bring one of these amazing pups home, whether it's one of the senior dogs or one of the younger dogs? You know, you're getting, you know, they're giving you so much love, but I feel like it's got to be a two-way street, because there has to be some patience and understanding for what it is that they've gone through.
100%. We wish dogs could talk, tell us their story. Patience and love, with time, you're going to have a perfect dog. Housebreaking, you really have to be consistent and patient with. If you are, it only takes 2 to 3 weeks, but it's a matter of schedules, consistency. But just knowing these dogs, their past was not so kind. Human touch was not something enjoyable for them, because usually they were going for something to be done to them. So earning that trust, having the patience, giving them the time they need to know they're not going to be hurt is so important. And people need to have that commitment once they take really any rescue dog, because so many suffer from abandonment or a bad experience and being in a shelter or all kinds of things. But there's so many dogs out there looking for homes. Currently under Big Dog Ranch's care, between our Palm Beach County facility, our Alabama facility, and our foster homes, we have almost 1,900 dogs that need homes. They're all wonderful. They're all loving. They're all deserving of a home to call their own. So anybody interested, please go to our website at bdrr.org. That's initials for Big Dog Ranch Rescue, and apply to adopt. If you can't adopt, donate, support our cause, come volunteer, come get involved. We are on a mission to end animal testing, to stop dogs from any kind of cruelty. And, you know, we can use your help in any way you want to get involved.
Well, you know, a lot of people have gotten involved. Is it true that in some of the last wave of pups that you brought in, that you had some celebrities that ended up taking some of them home? Is that right?
Yes, we did. We love Janine Pirro. She's got a big voice. She took 2 of our beagles home and has tolerated one of them chewing up her stair spindles and her new Valentino jacket that she hadn't even worn. That was a cute post, but you know, she's showing the patience that's needed for these dogs. And we've just had so much outpouring of love and support to get behind this movement of ending animal testing. And Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is definitely moving the ball forward to end animal testing for good. Like I've been told, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So these scientists and researchers that have been doing it for the same way for so long need to learn there is more humane and better ways now with AI and NAMS and the opening of the Arriva Center that doesn't cause cruelty to animals and has better relation to human trial outcomes.
Absolutely. I am of the belief that every single one of those dogs there is going to end up with an amazing forever home. But until that time comes, tell us a little bit about the facility and what kind of life that they're all living right now.
Well, here at Big Dog Ranch Rescue, we are cage-free, so we have what we call bunk rooms, like a bedroom. And each bunk room has access to we have about 50 half-acre play yards here at Big Dog Ranch. We have swimming pools for them. And so they really get to enjoy more like a home-like environment. We're not a typical shelter. Everybody would tell me it's too sad to go to a shelter. So when I designed and built this place, it was built with only not the dog's well-being in mind, but for the people that come to adopt, to see them in more of an environment where they don't feel sad. The dogs aren't locked up and feeling sad. So this is a state-of-the-art facility. They call it Dog Disneyland. And some people say, oh, why would they ever want to leave here? Well, having a home of your own, a person of your own, a family of your own, as nice as we can make it here, doesn't compare to having that own special family to love you back.
You know, you mentioned near the beginning of our conversation that some of the people involved in rescuing the remaining beagles have already adopted some of them, laid clay to some of them. I always love that expression, foster fail. You know, the people that are, yes, in charge of taking, just holding on to these dogs temporarily, eventually saying, I can't let him go. I got to hold on to this dog. Is that, now listen, it's the best problem to have, but is that one of the problems of this mission of doing something like this, is sometimes you just can't let them go?
We love foster failures. In fact, when anybody, my friends or anybody comes out and says, I really want one of these dogs, but my husband said no more dogs, and I said, just tell them you're fostering it. I said, it only takes a few weeks for them to fall in love and say, okay, we can keep it. Just like Laura and Eric Trump. She had a beagle that was gun shy, that was put in a kill shelter, and they chased it for a while as its nose went to the ground and it kept escaping. And when I called and said, hey, we have an adopter for your dog, they said, oh no, she's not going anywhere. So Laura Trump was very involved in the negotiations with me, with negotiating this deal to get all of these thousands of dogs out of Ridgeland and with their closure. And so I want to thank her. I want to thank Carl Icahn with the iPaw Rescue, who got involved and helped us with some major funds, and the Robert and Perry Bishop Foundation, and, myself, and along with a bunch of our board members that all donated to make this happen. This was expensive. 6 trips to Wisconsin with staff, with vehicles, our buses, our vans, veterinarians, vet techs, vaccines, microchips, hotel rooms. It was quite the endeavor. We started the first one the end of April and just completed the final dogs yesterday. So we could not have done this without the support of people from all over the country and even other countries. And, it's just been so heartwarming to see how many animal lovers are out there, and to get this message out of all of the dogs that are trapped in this kind of captivity and enduring, painful and most of the time fatal test. We've just launched the Beagle Liberation Act that we're hoping to attach to the FDA Modernization Act. which FDA Modernization Act will, limit testing that's unnecessary on dogs with some other things. But I think people don't realize at the end of these experiments and clinical trials and research projects done on these dogs, it's way more convenient for the testing facilities to just euthanize them and throw them in an incinerator. So they've been through hell, lived in a cage, had whatever experiment done on them, and then they're just killed. The Beagle Liberation Act, which we want every congressman and senator to get behind, will make it mandatory that these facilities, if the dogs are still alive and viable and non-contagious to humans, be put up for adoption or given to rescue. And that will save hundreds of thousands of these dogs' lives while we wait for, the transition from animal testing into the new way of testing, which is way more humane. And actually, there are funds I found out that the federal government has, the NIH has for that, and these facilities aren't using them. So we really want to move that forward. In the meantime, we know that animal testing will end, but it isn't going to happen overnight. We really want to expose the people that are, testing on these dogs, from the facilities to the companies that are ordering these trials, like Merck. They're going for a 4-year rabies vaccine. So all the dogs being tested will end up dying of rabies. Why do we need a 4-year vaccine? We already have a 3-year vaccine. It's not good for your dog to wait every 4 years to go see a vet. So things like that are totally unnecessary, don't need to happen. Why aren't we testing on death row inmates or people that have raped a child that are on death row? Let them pay service to humanity, not making these poor innocent dogs suffer. In the meantime, but I just am very, very committed. Our whole team here at Big Dog Ranch Rescue is committed to freeing these dogs, getting them out of these facilities. And
hey, Lori, I'm so sorry. We have to jump in just because we're running a little heavy on time, but we appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, and thank you for bringing these beagles home and making them available for people to bring home and give them their forever homes. We do appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right, guys. 3:33 Chicago Live rolls on. We'll be right back. Welcome back, 3:35 on Chicago Live. We started out the show talking about some of the developments that came out of that press conference with Kevin Warren and George McCaskey, talking all things Bears and their eyes set on potentially moving everything to Indiana. We're going to bring in Ernie Rose of Touchdown Arlington. Ernie, what were some of the big takeaways for you coming out of that press conference?
Yeah, I think there's two big takeaways. First is we heard a little bit about the Bears making progress on their due diligence, but ultimately we heard scant on the details. We didn't hear how they plan to deal with any of the logistical troubles involved with moving over the border. There's tax considerations. We've got plenty of other problems to solve logistically. We heard that they've completed due diligence on one site. We didn't hear that they were planning to build there. So I think the door is wide open, and it's important to remember that the only shovel-ready facility that the Bears can build on at this time is in Arlington Heights. And so we can't put too much into what we heard from them about progress. I think the dismaying part of the interview is that we didn't hear much about what they've done with Illinois. And I think there's a lot of finger-pointing going on between the leaders in Illinois and the Bears about who's done what and who hasn't done what in terms of communication. So I'd like to hear some news about how they're getting in the same room and working to resolve this problem. I think the Bears are right that there needs to be a piece of legislation put forward that gives them an alternative to Indiana. Bears have to participate in that process, but it's got to get done. And I think we should stop worrying about who hasn't done what and get everybody to doing now.
How much confidence were you given whenever, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the land in Arlington Heights that the Bears bought, that they were sort of, potentially thinking about building a stadium, that land is still not for sale. The Bears still very much own that land, and there's no for sale sign in front of it. What does that tell you?
It tells me that Arlington Heights is still on the table. They own a 200-acre piece of property in Arlington Heights that would be the best place to build in all of America. You're right next to a major highway. You have room for the surrounding development that every NFL team desires. And so I think it's important to note what you just did, which is the Bears still own it, and the Bears haven't indicated that they plan on moving it. You also haven't seen the tax agreement that the Bears have signed with the village and the municipalities around here regarding that lot go away. So they're still getting taxed at a lower rate. And I think if Arlington Heights was off the table completely, all parties involved would go back to taxing the Bears at the higher rate that they have the right and ability to do. So I think that there's still hope here in Arlington Heights, and there's hope in the Bears front office that this thing's going to get done. We just got to put something on the table that makes it a feasible alternative.
What do you think that Arlington Heights has to offer that that Hammond doesn't?
Well, I think if you were to take any expansion franchise that was to come in and they were given a map of the United States, I don't know why you'd want to build anywhere other than the property in Arlington Heights. You're not going to find a ready-made site with that many acres and really no impediments to building. I mean, this thing is meant to be built on. It ran a first-class racing facility previously. And so I think your fan base is here. The Bears released the statistics when they talked about coming to Arlington Heights about how a substantial portion of their fan base is within 25 miles of Arlington Heights. You've seen the public opinion polls. The fans want them in Illinois. They tried Chicago. That doesn't work. So we got to look at the site that we have, which is right here in the northwest suburbs, which is a great place for commerce. In addition to Arlington Heights, you've got surrounding neighbors that are interested and invested in the project. You've got Schaumburg down the road, which provides a tremendous amount of hotel capacity. And so I think you'd have a really hard time looking anywhere and finding a site better than what we have here.
What are you hearing from people in the area, people in Arlington Heights? Are they starting to feel like it's not going to break their way? Is there still a feeling of hope to be had? What are the people saying?
We've been riding this wave for a long time. I don't think you're going to find anyone here that'll tell you it's a done deal. I think there's still optimism that it'll get done, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of confidence at the moment because we're not hearing enough about our leaders. And by that, I don't mean Arlington Heights. Arlington Heights is ready to play ball, and they've been visible on that front. But we need the leaders in Springfield to get together with the Bears and craft legislation that makes sense. The tremendous amount of jobs that would come here, the commerce, the businesses that would open around the stadium, and even before the stadium, there's so much construction work to be done. We had tremendous support from labor when we had a gathering earlier this year. So I think that there's a little bit of fatigue, certainly, from going back and forth. We've been told Chicago, Arlington Heights, Hammond. Now we're hearing about other sites in Indiana. We all remember when Naperville was identifying a site. So nobody's taking it as a done deal, but we do realize that the clock is running out and we really need to get something done this fall.
To that point, do you think there is enough time for the pendulum to swing back the other way, for things to work out in the favor of Arlington Heights?
Oh, certainly. What you've seen is the Bears have told you they have done some work on one site and they're doing work on another site. We haven't heard anything about what the result of that work was. So at this point, there's no reason to think that this is a done deal. We've got a lot of time left, not infinite time, but the stadium lease runs for a while now. And if the Bears were ready to move forward with Indiana, they'd have said so in a lot more definitive terms today. I think what you heard was frustration, some of that reasonable. But I also don't think it's reasonable of the Bears to say, as they did today, that they've made no mistakes throughout the process. So I think everybody needs to take ownership of this thing and work on an outcome rather than working on assignment of blame.
You know, whenever we get the sort of press conferences like we got today, they don't happen very often. So whenever they do, it stands to reason that it might be a while before we get another one. So we're sort of stuck with whatever the news is that we got today. So because you didn't get a definitive no to Arlington Heights, does it sort of reset the clock for you again? Do you sort of go, well, it's going to be a while before we hear from them again, and they didn't say no. There's no shovel in the ground anywhere right now. So clock resets. We're good on time.
I don't think that the clock is reset. I think on the positive column, you've seen that they maybe weren't able to move as quickly in Indiana as they'd like. You didn't hear a site defined today. You've heard that they've done due diligence, not that they've chosen a site. So we've got more time. The clock hasn't reset. I think they're not going to go another full legislative session. If this bill is going to pass, it's going to pass in special session, or it's going to pass in the veto session later this year. So if anybody is planning on having another year to get this done, I think that's a poor planning move on their part. We got to get it done soon.
And, in a hypothetical world where the Bears do end up going to Indiana, what do you think happens to that land?
Well, I can tell you one thing. Arlington Heights is not going to be a loser no matter how this turns out, because whatever comes there is going to be net beneficial for our community. There's tons of developers that would love to get their hands on that lot and put something beautiful there. So I'm not worried about what's going to happen for Arlington Heights. I do feel that this is the best and highest use of that land, as former Mayor Hayes has said and current Mayor Tenali has said. And our leadership is laser focused on getting something good here that'll benefit our community. So I'm not giving up on the Bears project. I think that we're still in a horse race here. Forgive the pun for former Arlington Park, but we've got to pull ahead. And right now, our leaders in Arlington Heights have not been given the tools to get that done, and we need action in Springfield.
Ernie, obviously we did get a lot of information from those press conferences today, but were there any questions that you had specifically that were not answered that you were hoping to get some answers for?
I think we need some clarity regarding what sort of communications are happening between the Bears and the state of Illinois and why there isn't more of it. You hear Illinois, Governor Pritzker today said, well, bring us some legislation. And you heard from Mr. McCaskey that it's their job. It doesn't matter who calls who. We need to stop this. This sounds like a high school. What we need is leadership, and we need folks to get together and craft legislation. You saw a great deal of urgency in the last week in Springfield towards getting a deal done. And you heard tough talk right after that from everybody about how this will continue to be a priority. And then you've heard nothing for several months. And I think that that's a waste. Unless there's, I hope they were going to, sometimes when things are quiet, it means things are getting done. But from both sides, it appears that very little has been done in the last few months. So my hope is that we'll see some true leadership from our governor, who has provided some guidance and some reasonable guardrails for legislation. But we really need him and the Bears leadership to get together and get this across the finish line. And we really need Chicago to get behind the Arlington Heights plan. Every minute spent talking about a Chicago option is a wasted opportunity at this point. So we need everybody to be on the same page that there is one viable site in Illinois, and that's in Arlington Heights.
Fair enough. Ernie Rose, touchdown Arlington. We appreciate you taking the time today, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, guys. 3:45, just about 3:46. Chicago Live rolls on. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Just about 3:49. Just a couple of minutes left here on Chicago Live. This last one's a big one that could have a major impact on a lot of people in the city of Chicago, both drivers of rideshare drivers and people that use them. Illinois new law gives more than 100,000 rideshare drivers a path to organize and collectively bargain. We're going to bring in App Drivers Union leader Ronnie Gonzalez. Ronnie, are you with us? Ronnie, I think you still might be muted. Let's see if we can get you. Ronnie, take a look at that and see if we can get maybe your microphone pulling from the right way. So, yeah, if you missed this is a story that we've been following for a while. Like we said, this new law, 100,000 rideshare drivers across the city, across the state, a path to organize, to unionize. Alexi Janulius recently tweeted, Illinois rideshare drivers can officially start organizing to form a union and bargain for a better life. He writes, I am so proud to be a part of the moment. Uber and Lyft drivers, sign your union card today. Let's see if we can bring back in App Drivers Union leader Ronnie Gonzalez. Ronnie, are you still, are you with us yet? Have we figured out our microphone yet? Ronnie, I think you still might be muted. I tell you what, Ronnie, we're going to take, why don't we take a quick break? Ronnie, we're going to have you leave the Zoom, rejoin, and hopefully we can have you back on the other side of this break. Guys, does that work for you? All right, guys, don't go anywhere. Chicago Live rolls on. We'll be right back. Welcome back. 3:54. Just a couple of minutes left here on Chicago Live. That's because at 4 o'clock, we've got Fox 32 News at 4. We've got the best journalist in the city, in the state, in the country, in the world, however you want to call it, on standby, ready to bring us the latest news that have been making its way through all of our, just our area in general over the course of the day. We're going to check in with, I think, dollar for dollar, one of the best journalists in the country. And she just so happens to be my Chicago Live co-host. Casey Cronus is live in Munster. Casey, how are things going out there?
Hi, Jake. First of all, your introductions are always too kind. Thank you so much. So here in Munster, it is a mess. I just want to step out of the way and show you. We are on 35th and Linden in a neighborhood here in Munster where the National Guard has been deployed, the Indiana National Guard. There are 30 guardsmen here in Munster and another 30 in Hobart. I mean, just take a look at this damage. The massive tree that was uprooted from the ground here was actually just chopped up, but when we arrived a couple of hours ago, it was still fully intact. Neighbors have really come together to lend a helping hand here in this community. National Guards members are also here to help chip in. They've been clearing debris, clearing down trees. They've got their chainsaws and other equipment in hand to get all of this out of the roadway and the sidewalks. They aren't able to go on properties and help assist at homes. But really, if folks put all of their debris in the street, on the sidewalks, that is when the National Guard can then come in and help clear it from the roadways, which will then create a path for NIPSCO and utility workers to get into these neighborhoods and get the lights back on because, Jake, there are still more than 230,000 customers in the dark today. And we're talking 2 days after those severe storms.
Yeah, and I know more storms are kind of rolling through our area. Casey, just about 60 seconds left. I know sometimes it can be tough, when we go out and cover these stories to try to talk to homeowners and talk to people because they're busy. They're trying to clean up and put their lives back together. Have you had a chance to be able to talk with anyone out there?
We did. We spoke with a gentleman who he and his wife just moved to this neighborhood 2 months ago because they actually loved all of the trees in the neighborhood on the block. And one of their trees, actually 2 of them, toppled onto their home. You'll hear from him coming up at 4. Just really devastating. Our hearts go out to all of those who are affected.
Absolutely. Casey Cronus live in Munster. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes. We really do appreciate you.
Thanks, Jake.
All right, guys. That's it for us on Chicago Live. We're going to have much more coming up, as Casey said, including Casey Cronus. Much more coming up during Fox 32 News at 4. I'll be back tomorrow. But for now, enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.
Now at 4, the National Guard is out in northwest Indiana helping NIPSCO crews get through what they're running into on the ground that's slowing everything down.
ComEd says 8 out of 10 homes got their power back. That means a lot of people